crazy hair war.
Well, I think Andrew's going to win it and then lose it.
Tonight's the night.
Why not? I got the implements.
We're only doing one thing tonight on CFAD. Just one simple thing. Like they say, do one thing better than anyone else.
We'll probably do more than one thing, but
This is Little Idea's hedgehog strategy.
we're gonna have a montage.
I shave my head. That's it.
Well, it looks like I'm trading places with Josh though, because Josh used to look, clean cut and respectable.
It's true. I've embraced the new look. T-shirts, hoodies, beards, and bouffant.
It's all about the bouffant.
Totally. First, get the right people on the bus, then get clippers on the bus, then shave the people. I think this is the hedgehog strategy, right?
So we're gonna get my head shaved, and we'll talk a little bit about why. We're also gonna get a little bit of a sample of why I'm rarely gonna be on Cloud Foundry if it's not at 11. So we'll have a little background noise as well.
Perfect.
But just to give a little bit of setup, and then I'm going to come in and out. So I'm going to go somewhere where I can make a mess with my hair, and then I'll give you guys periodic updates over the next hour. And so by the end of the thing, we'll get to the goal.
So what I'd like you to do, Andrew, is if you could just create like an extremely awkward first cut out of the middle of the virgin forest.
I was going to go the other direction and come back with the mohawk in the middle. And maybe like change the beard along the way.
I think just like it's got to look really awkward. Like there's got to be some sort of no human would style their hair like that moment that we can screen capture.
Okay. So how about I cut it into the side?
I'm just looking for a mohawk myself. So.
At any rate,
have fun with it. Now, Andrew, could you explain why you're doing this on nationally televised Hangout?
This is a worldwide show, brothers.
Yeah.
We're worldwide.
Shout out to our Indian watchers right now.
Well, after a week of having some particularly onerous meetings with people in the federal and defense verticals, where all I heard was people questioning a bunch of things about the operating systems and the kernel, and they wanted this and that, and they had a bunch of STIG lists or whatever they call them, where they had to be conforming with some policy, but no one could actually explain the policy or why or talk about the technology. It just had to be compliant. And in another parallel universe, there was a thread going by in our email about the pivotal strategy with respect to the federal market and being able to take care of those customers and really show them what we're capable of, because we're hitting these kinds of roadblocks. And in one of those emails, I responded that I would shave my head if we got a PO. And
a very large, certain set of 7 figures PO. In fact, it was a kind of a bold level of like, if you do this,
I will shave my head.
I will shave my head. Now, there's a little thing that happened between your first meeting and then tonight's scalping, which is that my friend Josh McKenty, who's also here, he went to Washington, D.C., and he has absolutely no credibility because he's only the guy that invented NASA, OpenStack at NASA, and has some presidential awards. So he had no credibility with these people and in no way helped expedite any of this.
I mean, I think it takes a village, right? Like, we definitely had some conversations along the way. Not that it wasn't like Josh, but
it was more than one trip for sure, and it was more than one person. Absolutely, I think we kind of threw down the gauntlet and went full court press. I know. We've hired people, we've retasked people, we've accelerated things in the product backlog. I've spent a lot of red eyes back and forth to I think I was, 9 agencies in 32 hours a couple of times. But I think it paid off because this last quarter wasn't just one deal. I think actually if this was really fair, if we were going to do like parity for winning these kinds of deals and people shaving their heads, it'd be like all of us on this video right now would be like, all right, buzz it down, because that was an amazing quarter in federal. I don't even know how to characterize it.
So to sum it up, while at first our all-in-one closed system lockdown approach might not have fit with the first blush reaction, a lot of leaders said this is the future, and now across military, intelligence, civilian, and some of the other branches, suddenly we are a popular person at the dance.
Well, you already saw a little bit of that at the Cloud Foundry Summit, and there are people from federal that were really, and some of this is coming from this other side where they really want to change, they really want to evolve, and so that was why I was a little frustrated, because I knew what we could do, I knew what Cloud Foundry could offer them was so much better than what they're used to, that it was kind of frustrating to have these conversations and be stuck on roadblocks that were on some level inconsequential to the overall picture, and it's just gratifying to see that it's not that we're done. And if you spend an hour with me, I'm not going to say everything is perfect in this world, but we're making progress.
One thing that is going to get more perfect over this hour is the level of shavedness of your head. That's definitely getting better.
So I'll leave you guys to go talk about whatever, and hopefully by the end of this hour my kids are in bed too, but we'll see how that goes because I'll be a little distracted with you guys. But I'm going to go take apart, dismantle some of this, and we'll be back.
The only thing I will say, Andrew, is your hair grows so fast it'll be like 2 days and it's going to be full beard and full hair again, I guarantee it.
It'll come back. It comes back. We're not worried. All right, see you in a minute.
This is where we play the intermission music. So, James, sounds like you've had a pretty slow couple of weeks. I don't know if you want to spend a couple seconds on that.
Yeah, I was just Josh and I actually have both been pretty busy, actually, I'd say. I did 23 or 24 prospect/customer visits in 5 cities in 7 days, and usually about 90 minutes each. And I wrote up a lot of that. And Josh, a week before that, he spent 2 weeks in Asia seeing. It was ridiculous, the number of people.
27 prospect and customer meetings, about the same time, but and roughly same number, 5 cities, but 5 cities in 4 countries. So there's a lot more time on planes in between.
And my favorite moment maybe was I was on day 2 out in Massachusetts. I was in Springfield, Massachusetts, at the headquarters of a company named Mass Mutual out there in Springfield. I'd never been out to Springfield before, and really high security place. Get through security again. I'm walking in. I'm greeted at the front gate, and great architect there shakes my hand and says, "Hey, I know you from CFAD." in the middle of Massachusetts. So there's actually like several CFAD discussions that happened that I wish we were recording during the course of that. But I think the thing that blew my mind, and this is the same reason Andrew's shaving his head now, is that this last quarter coming off the summit, there's so many people that have come out with their stories and what it's done for them that I don't want to say it this way, but our batting percentage in terms of people we talk to about this and people who do about this is becoming almost surreal, to the point where you're like, how do I keep up with all the activity that's happening? I feel like I tweeted I can't travel fast enough to still get to know all the people doing interesting things with Cloud Foundry now. And that's a real challenge. I mean, I can go into some of the deeper dives, but James Bear, you saw the notes. I mean, it seems like, did you get tired just reading that? Or how are we going to keep up with all this activity?
Yeah, I was tagging people, product managers left and right, in your note is like, oh, we need to have this person follow up on that conversation, have that person follow up on that conversation. At some point, I think I had tagged like 10 different product managers for probably 15 different customer conversations, and I still wasn't done with the document. It was a really, really impressive document that just explained all the things people are doing out there, that was and how much surface area the project has across different things. Some of the people were really interested in low-level things like containers and operating system stuff. Other people are very interested in service marketplaces. Other people are really interested in the developer experience. Other people are really interested in the operator experience. And so when you look at that whole surface area, it just touches so many different things. And having the platform just kind of address all those needs for these different stakeholders, that's when it really comes out. Is like when you just see, it's like, oh, they're not everyone's just focused on this one area. It's all these different areas put together.
And it really drives home that doing a PaaS is several orders of magnitude more difficult than it seems, right? To do a sort of proof of concept day one, it works okay. Yeah, you can throw one of those together pretty quickly. But in order to actually meet the full breadth of even a typical enterprise customer, it is a massive investment to keep up with those needs. And that it's awesome to get that insight into what customers are doing, but at the same time, it really reinforces that ever so popular thing that I've been saying, that DIY PaaS is going to be a very expensive misadventure for a lot of folks, and that's really unfortunate. A lot of those folks come to us after they've gone down that path of trying to do it themselves, and they understand viscerally that it is not easy, and you really want someone else dedicated to doing that and making it amazing and really benefiting from all the input from all the other customers, right? So.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of those visits was a company that's one of the top two, three credit card companies in the world, $100 billion credit card company, that set aside a team of 7, had been working on something basic, and the meeting with them was pretty much like, okay, we've learned a lot about this pattern, but we really want to work with a larger group on it now. Like, we actually feel like we're smart enough to contribute, so they want to join the foundation, I think, within the next quarter or so. Publicly, so that'll be a nice augment to the great other financial services customers got in there. But their message was, we wanted to get smart trying to do this ourselves, but realized that it's not something you do with even a small team. Like, this is a 200-person engineering team over time.
That's right, and the lesson is the same lesson as we keep seeing again and again in anything that's well executed in cloud, and that's that. When you use something like Cloud Foundry, you get enormous leverage such that you can put all of your resources into things that add business value instead of again and again building this undifferentiated heavy lifting, right? That's why in part AWS is so massively popular, is because people are really understanding deeply now that they have no business running servers. And over time, I think that people will come to further realizations that they have no business caring about sort of what's an individual container, or necessarily how load balancing is going on, how the scaling happens, right? All those things need to be essentially dial tone. You don't necessarily know how it happens, but man, it is always there.
J-Mac, what did you see in Asia? It's interesting because in a lot of ways Asia's behind, and they know it. They're a little more conservative in their thinking. They're a little more conservative in how quickly they adopt these kind of technologies. But they're also really decisive when they do so. And so a lot of the conversations I had were folks saying, hey, we're pretty sure now that we need to go to PaaS. We know why. We know what we're going to do with it. And we know that this is not a decision we're making lightly, that this is a decadal shift, that this will be the future of our data center for the next couple decades. And I I always have great conversations because I go talk to people who have big OpenStack deployments, right? Like I met with a web company in Tokyo who is the largest OpenStack cloud I've ever seen. Hundreds of thousands of cores, tens of thousands of VMs, and they'd kind of done the DIY thing to death already, you know, at the IaaS layer, and they'd learned all those lessons. And basically, what they were saying was, you know, we could do PaaS. We're smart enough. We could take Cloud Foundry open source and do it ourselves, and it would take us 2 years. And by the time we were done, you would be 2 years ahead of us. So how does that make any sense? And it's really this sense that the pace of technology is accelerating so much that what folks can think about getting done for themselves today is not the major concern. The major concern is how are they going to get onto a train that's taking them in the direction they want to go. And really, Cloud Foundry is that train. It's like we're on rails. There's a new release. I mean, Bayer drives the train, right? And there's a new release that comes out of the station every couple of months, and everybody's on that train. Nobody wants to be in horse and buggy anymore. This is the era of rail.
Yeah, I think that's a great way of putting it. I mean, I don't know what you think about, James, about the stuff that you've been working on recently. Where do you think? What are some of the things that you think we're investing in that are going to matter to that Rails kind of story, James? Like the team's just been growing. I mean, you might want to give people some background, but like we're trying to add 2 engineers a week. I think that Unsi said he thinks he can do 2 engineers a week in growth. That's how fast we're growing right now to keep up with demand.
Yeah, we're trying to slot people on the places that we can you know, take on a lot of new engineering talent. Where some of the really interesting things that places where we really haven't we've shown promise, but not having the actual, we have working code, but not actually having shipped it in a GA release yet is coming up in this metrics stuff that we've been talking about for a while, and it's getting really close. So I know Ben's seen some of it, and he's working with the team that's building that. But the ability to have live metrics about your application instantly available, like we're not talking about like 5-minute delay. We're talking about like, hey, what happened right now, like with my throughput, with my latency, with my error rates, and getting that into a feedback loop so you can act on it immediately, whether that's by a human doing something or whether it's by the system doing some action. And so I'm really excited about that in particular. We got a really good team working on that. And then that kind of feeds in across the platform. So you can imagine doing things in the CLI and the web UI, feeding that kind of information into things like ongoing performance tests. So like if every time you commit code, that if your performance doesn't meet a certain threshold, that it gets rejected because there's a performance regression. Those are the kinds of things we can start building into the platform then that you could do today, but it's not really like served up to you, right? And so yeah, we're hiring engineers, we're hiring product managers. We have to to kind of like grow this team out, and it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, and we worked with CFAD. Rob Hirschfeld came on CFAD about a month ago and said, hey, I could do bare metal and BOSH, just to show you how CFAD is actually a thing. And we flew him up to the office for a week, and that was pretty well received. And then I was with foundation members, JP Morgan Chase in New York, and I think their foundation folks, so they've been very supportive. They've got great stuff running now. And then immediately they were interested in the bare metal BOSH stuff, as was Justin from Bloomberg, who I hung out with in New York as well. And so the velocity at which I think these features can be created by the community and then rapidly getting feedback on from powerhouse users is something I'm really interested, because right away there were 2 people that are billion-dollar level investments in infrastructure and technology signed up to take a look at this. So I think that's the kind of cool feedback loop that I see right now. Holy cow. What's happening?
We got to get him off mute so we can see his face. So everyone else.
It's a little halfway update.
It's a little Sinead O'Connor.
That's one small shave for a man.
It's
oh my God.
What's your band called, Andrew?
I don't know. I need three words to get that '90s Seattle thing going.
The ACS is going to rock you.
I'll come back with the band name. I'll do the other side. The other side still looks like this.
Yeah, so it looks
How about 19-inch nails?
19-inch?
What do your kids say about this?
8.5 inch. All right. I'll be back.
19 inches of rack reference. Seemed appropriate.
No,
All right.
I got you, Josh. Don't worry.
Ben got it.
I didn't get it. I suck. No, so that was a cool feature, and that's you know, the amount of people we have on Bosch right now, James, has been pretty cool to see.
Actually,
Well, yeah,
Waters or Bayer, can you guys talk about the UAA stuff? Because that's so big for.
Well, yeah, that stuff just they finished a big track of work so that up until recently, Bosch maintained its own user database, and obviously when you're in an enterprise scenario where they have their enterprise identity providers, a lot of them want to integrate in with SAML2 providers or Active Directory or LDAP, and so we have this great component in Cloud Foundry that does that for our developers, and that's called the UAA, which is an OAuth 2 server. But then it can integrate with all these things. So we just basically made that able to be the Bosch user store. So now your operators can be coming from your standard IDP. So that's really cool. Like when we use this stuff at Pivotal, we wired into Okta, which is a standard kind of portal kind of thing, and that's how we manage one of our deployments. And you imagine all of our customers being able to just tie into their Active Directories and their SAML providers, so that hey, when people get onboarded, when people leave the organization, they don't have to worry about tracking that stuff down. So that was just a really important feature for our enterprise customers that we just finished.
Hey, Scott Truitt, a good friend of ours and works with Ben Black on metrics, just tweeted that we're stuck on Schaefer's ceiling and we're not moving in between on CFAD right now. I'm seeing if he responds, if it's gotten any better. I don't know if there's anything we can do to fix that.
Yeah. So how that works is people can click on a picture, but what's going out to the world.
That's entirely me.
Okay.
Yeah, I thought it might be you, Ben, to unclick on Schaefer since you're the.
Hey, Bayer, the other thing I noticed that I think is a really good sign on the feature development, and I figure Ben's probably got this sorted, is we're starting. I had a great conversation. I've been doing a lot of the loop around security issues for the last quarter, and partly that was starting with federal markets and getting the federal markets and financial services markets happy. And then Asia in general is very conservative about security, so we had a lot of those discussions. It looks like we're going to pull a special interest working group together under the foundation for some of these discussions. But the great part, I tweeted this quote earlier in the week that Cloud Foundry is like crack cocaine, and I had a few people DM me saying they thought that was not in good taste and that I really shouldn't be repeating. I didn't make that up. That was what a customer told me, and I was like, I realized that for folks who've had direct experience with crack cocaine, that's actually not funny. But I did want to emphasize that the conversation we were having is that we've set this experience up for developers where they don't ever think about servers and they don't ever think about their application being down. And so they design and build software in a totally different way now. And we started thinking about these rare occasions, and this was like every 2 years or every 5 years when your root CA expires and you have to rotate your certificates. We're like, oh, yeah, I guess we actually have this once every 5 years coordinated downtime thing. We should fix that before it comes up. And so we're at the point now where our customers, they're like, look, when they're on the crack, you can't take it away from them. At this point, they're like, we can't, we've solved the daily and weekly and monthly downtime challenges. They're like, now those twice a decade things, we can't have those either. So we're addressing, the feature backlog is addressing these really rarefied but extremely valuable, like, decadal challenges, which I think is a great sign for the maturity of the platform.
Well, that's something. Another feature we just finished was being able to include CAs number of CAs inside of every single server that Bosch deploys. So yeah, that's great. I mean, the way that we do things with Bosch is we don't leave any one server up for, probably likely very long. You're in control of that in a private deployment, but we're pushing out security patches and things. So you're never going to be at one of those things where you have these Solaris servers that were running for like 900 days and people bragging about it, like, and taking screen grabs and showing that. But the ability to roll your system and have everything just like keep working, yeah, that's absolutely something we want to do. We want to bake in those CA certs rolling, as well as other credentials just rolling through the system all over the place. And we haven't, like, going back to what Andrew said, we haven't finished that work all over the system. We got lots of work to do, but that's the end state, right? That everything that we deploy, whether that's CAs on the servers, whether that's credentials you're using point-to-point for system communication, whether that's even an authentication with a database or something like that, being able to change those credentials and have your system like reconnect and things like that. That's really what we want, just like have that stuff to be taken care of. Hey, Arnie's on.
The great tweet from one of our engineering friends at Fidelity UK, who said, hey, we updated 200 VMs and it was a trivial amount of work and we updated them many times. He said it would have taken 2 months before. So I think that's one of the hidden parts of what we're doing, because a lot of people hear, oh, Cloud Foundry, oh, that's my container solution, that's the most mature enterprise container solution, but you have to understand that's just one of 3 things, 3 or 4 big things that we provide in the platform, and that's why we got so many people in R&D cranking away. So it's,
VM orchestration is just as critical. Because remember, I mean, lots of people think containers on bare metal or containers on raw hosts sooner or later sound sexy, but we still have some pretty serious security reasons why that's not a good idea, and seeing containers inside VMs just makes way more sense.
So Arnie, my friend, just because we're all technologists and road warriors right now, like Josh, Arnie, me, and we're gonna get Bear on the plane. I don't know if he wants to. I don't know if he wants to take as much punishment as me and JMac and Arnie, but he can take it. But Arnie's running around Germany and getting major car people in Germany and major industrial people in Germany all fired up. What's going on over in Germany? It hasn't been a CFAD in a while, and I think all of us just been exhausted from just tongue out, like tail wagging, like passing out from traveling so much.
Yeah, the funny anecdote I have, and this one is actually really funny. It is not in Germany, right? This starts pretty close to home in Delaware, a big consumer financial firm. And these guys have been toiling away on chef scripts at the advice of their top advisor and doing a lot of Java AE stuff. And the amount of code they produce is, I can't beat that. Look at that. Holy shit. Oh my God.
Tell us about the new record there, Andrew.
I just need to get some egg whites so I can.
Oh, what's happening? Oh boy.
All right, we'll be back.
What? You need to take a picture to be your Twitter picture like that. Like
somebody do a screen cap.
Type in Schaefer, Pirate Schaefer right there. Yeah, you gotta make that like your permanent.
There's plenty more hair in the house.
Hey, David, what's up, buddy?
That's McKean. Oh, you want to see? He wants to see too.
That's not Sabbath.
Sorry, I screwed up.
All right, I'll be back. So what's the request? I still need to get the Bics out. I still need to get the razors out.
Just get a bunch of photos. Get a bunch of photos of it in its current state.
No, current state needs to be your Twitter picture from now on.
All right, we'll see what we can do.
We'll see if we can get you a record deal.
I have no words.
This is all that took for us to. Oh my God. Be a lot of hair cutting.
What I love is this is like going to be the least popular CFAD live ever because everyone's on vacation. So Schaefer's like shaving his head for like all of 8 people to ever see it. But
you can deep link into the video replay. This will be fine.
It's also the first time.
So Arnie, back to this exhilarating financial services Delaware story. Tell us more.
So this guy who's been toiling away, writing chef services and chef cookbooks and a whole bunch of Java, JE boilerplate code. He sees Spring Boot on CF for the first time, and I've never seen an expression like that before. His jaw just dropped, and he's like, "That's it?" He's like, "What am I gonna do? My life is gonna be like." The whole thought that he's just going to be writing business code on now and not having to worry about Chef and all the other crap clustering, Java clustering code he had to write was just priceless.
Is
And
this since I saw you, Arnie? When was this?
say again?
When was this? Is this since I saw you?
This is last week.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is last week in Delaware. He was just he just didn't know what to do. On one side, he's like, my life is going to be so boring. I'm going to have. But on the other hand, it's like maybe I'll actually keep my job because I'm not writing infrastructural crap, and I'm actually doing stuff that's going to help this credit card company, build real business in the U.S. So, and Bear just posted this pretty awesome post from Dan, who's been doing some interesting analysis of Boot versus some of the other frameworks. But the whole point is write business code, right? This is lost on people. The second one was another massive telco who's, the points that JMac was making, JMac and Ben both were making before is, build your own PaaS, and this team now has between 40 to 50 people building their PaaS, and, you shake your head saying, why? And then we met 4 of the other people in the same company, right, who are supposed to be the clients of these people once their group is done. And they asked them, so what do you think about it? And their response was, why? We know they're going to fail. And 6 months back, we're going to come back to you guys anyway. We should have gotten a discount today rather than delay our pain, hire these guys full price from order. Literally the words. So that was kind of the back-to-backs. This also happened last week. This one in New York, they came to us. But this is like back-to-back stories of one DIY, which is, happening and they're not happy, and the other one which is like eye-opening for them on what, Boot and CF can do. But back to Germany. I was actually in Chicago also last week, so these are kind of connected. And connected, the pun is intended, because both of them are pretty massive connected car opportunities. One of them is one of the big auto manufacturers in Europe, in Germany, right? That kind of narrows it down, but they've decided to use CF as the backbone for all connected vehicles.
Whoops.
And I can't even see Ben right now in his picture, but I know he's smiling right now, widely, grin, ear to ear. And that's huge. In fact, they're flying out a bunch of their architects this week to kind of get deeper into the details of how. Right now, it's a subset of the vehicles, but they're looking at.
Aren't we sending Ben in on a plane to talk to them in Palo Alto? And Ben, we never put him on a plane, so it's a pretty big deal.
Yeah. So Ben and I. The 2-day detail workshop. But this is kind of the next step, right? They've already made the decision to go with CF. We're going to soon announce them joining the foundation. It's going to be huge. Their senior leadership, again, never heard of, are going to join an open source foundation and are looking at making contributions to the foundation in a meaningful fashion, in a way in which they're going to be way ahead of their competition, because they, literally the words from their top executive are, we want to be remembered in history as more than a sheet bending and a metal bending firm. So they see the impact software is having, and they want to go way beyond. And the business goal is straightforward. They're like, our experience with our drivers, who are our clients, usually starts and ends when you step in the car and step out. They're like, those days are gone. They want to extend the relationship with their clients. Right? You could be sitting on the couch, but you want to see what your car is doing. So you want to see what gas is there, or driving, all that fun stuff. But create deep immersive experiences. So I want to create a Fitbit-like experience. Because if you think about these guys who drive these fast cars, they want to come back and right? Some of them out of pride because they, for the environment, because they drove really well, or some of them out of sheer fun to say how many, especially if you're driving in Germany, how fast you've really gone. So it's an amazing experience that's being created. For me, it's like as a driver, it makes me see this as a ton of fun. I do own one of those cars, but the bigger thing is as a CF part of the CF ecosystem. It's amazing to see how cars are being connected, to this ecosystem. So it's great, tons of great stories. There's more, but just a glimpse.
So far, just today, since the last time, one of the top 4 car manufacturers in the world and one of the top 2 credit card companies in the world have now announced plans to us to join the foundation and to contribute to CF.
Yeah, I mean, the second one, they joined the foundation, is awesome, but I think the bigger one is they are looking at meaningful ways in which they can contribute to the foundation, and that's huge. That is absolutely huge. If you think about car-to-car communication, the logjam that's being created, the need for not just protocols, but APIs that need to be exposed, and a runtime, not just a GitHub repository, right? Increasing levels of sophistication, but runnable code that people can speak to, because they've lived in Word documents and they want to get the hell out of that.
How is Schaefer's hair coming? Schaefer, can you hear us?
I'm getting responses from people watching this saying, that last picture, it didn't look like a mullet, it looked like the horse's tail. So he should come back with a new look pretty fast.
I think the key is the incremental but awful looking progress.
You were mentioning IoT and connected car, but one of the big threads I saw in Asia is smart cities, right? Whether it's smart city or smart nation initiatives, and in a lot of countries in Asia, government never buys direct, right? So I had some interesting meetings with government officials, as I usually do, but they were very, in some sense, very open, because they're like, we're not going to buy from you. That's not what we do. We're going to buy from an SI who's going to sell us your product. And so the follow-up the last couple of weeks has been really interesting, because we've had a bunch of major SIs fly into San Francisco to meet with us. And so I've been, actually our regional VP flew out last week to host dinners and executive briefings with these SI partners, because they said, wait, you were just out in our country meeting with the CIO of our government about the Smart City program, which means we need to be able to sell them your product, so please help us understand what it is. It was just a very, it's almost an upside down sales relationship, but really they're super sophisticated in their thinking of what do they want to accomplish. I would say of all of the IoT initiatives I've seen, the Asian smart city initiatives are way ahead. So, which is unusual, I think.
Yeah, no, I mean, they've made so many advances, some of these countries. When you look at what Singapore is doing, they've been the most vocal about their Smart Nation project.
Yeah.
They've reached levels of efficiency, which at this point they realize that to get to the next level, they have to look at, approaches in smart cities, and they're defining that as they go. And how do they wire up the city, number one? How do they collect data? How do they expose it as APIs? Back these data APIs. But for them, the real goal, and some cities have done that reasonably well, even if it's not connected to things. Creating a dev ecosystem where which people can build applications that connect that data back to the citizens. That's huge. And until they do that, they know they're not going to succeed. So it's connecting the things, creating data out of it, and building apps and connecting those back to citizens. And the first city that cracks that and creates that nice feedback loop is going to be the one that's going to be the most successful. Mm-hmm. And there's no question that you need a rich data platform, but equally importantly, you need a rich API/apps platform to kind of deliver that. That's why CF is so key. And they're smart. They're like, hey, all this is nice. Without open source, you're not doing any other stuff. API is open, platform's got to be open, all of that. They know.
Hey, Waters.
They're being pretty smart.
Yo, dog.
So I saw some tweets. I think it was a tweet earlier this week from Zitney, Andy Zitney from Allstate, wearing a hoodie and throwing down with the James Waters style hoodie. But he had some great stories he shared at the summit, and then since then about the amount of traction that his team is having inside Allstate in terms of that cultural change, the revolution. And I see this in our most successful accounts. It's not so much about the tools, it's about helping people feel like they can engage with those tools and breaking down those cultural barriers. Do you want to share some stories on that side?
I mean, I when I'm on the road, sometimes I'll show. The number one is that Zitney is now famous. So you talk to big deal leaders in these Fortune 500 companies now, they know Andy Zitney, and he's done a great thing, and he's put himself. He was already huge on the map. I mean, he's in the victory lap phase of his career because he's done so much. But this is still remarkable, and people know about him. But I like to show people the tweet from him, which says, "I got a shout out from my CEO," and I say, "Look, that's my job. Like at the end of the day, we might use software to get there. We might use cloud to get there. We might use Spring Boot. We might use all of these things." But we're trying to give you a fundamental orders of magnitude shift in terms of your ability to deliver. Like we're not here to sell you the new fashionable tool of the day and to teach you a new way of doing what you're already doing, but with a different bent in a new language. Like that's just not what we're about. And it was great. I was leaving a online brokerage firm in New Jersey, and the guy said to me, he's like, "Hey man, I got to get my CEO shout out just like Zitney," and that's a straight out quote. And Andy's an amazing guy, doing an amazing thing. He actually got on Twitter when I was taking shots of tequila with him one night. So it's really personal to me, the stuff he's been sharing on Twitter and what he's done for Allstate. And I was just DMing with your friend Don Addington, who's out of Atlanta, a mega retailer there. And we're going to bring in, he's just telling me, oh God.
It's getting there.
Is that like some sort of Mario Brothers character?
Loving it. Yeah, we've been having Waters, we've been having some great success with that customer. That started as a labs engagement, right? And so we're like, hey, we're going to bring the labs team in, we're going to rebuild some of this stuff, we'll host it on PCF for these projects, and as soon as we got PCF up and running, other teams inside that organization started jumping on board. We have like 3 times as many apps on the platform now as we had planned on, and the last one that they moved over, Don Adding, do you want to give the quote? I just love that quote.
We're going to pause for a second, I'm going to play it. Hold on.
Give the quote. Come on, give the quote. Give the quote. Give the quote. All right, ready?
Yeah.
Can you hear this? All right. Welcome to my humble abode. Here we go.
James, I'm not sure if the folks at home can see Schaefer because you're the one with the music on. So Ben, can you make sure the camera's on Schaefer?
Yeah, I already locked it there.
You click on
better without hearing.
Anyone can watch it on the bottom though. It'll be there.
Oh man, sorry, that was my most favorite musical interlude of CFAD ever.
Just
The Enshavening.
Now I will go. I'll finish the job.
Shafe, it doesn't look bad on you. You got a pretty normally shaped head, which is good for this situation.
I mean, there are worse problems to have. I'll get it all.
Weird, weird and good.
We were talking about some Cloud Foundry. So what was going on over there? The favorite quote.
Yeah, I gotta throw down the favorite quote. So this is, it's a pretty classic challenge, right? The developers have built this Node app, and they're supporting a next generation kind of mobile e-commerce thing, and they need to figure out how to run it now because it's built, but it's not being run anywhere. And so they decided ahead of time, they're like, oh, we're going to do Docker on AWS. That's our platform of choice. And they've been working on setting that up for a month. And someone inside this organization, the thing is, like, $100 billion company is not like one org. It's like many separate orgs that have their own lines of communication. So this particular team we'd never talked to. And they heard through the grapevine that Cloud Foundry was available internally now, and they're like, dude, can we use Cloud Foundry now? So they switched over. They borrowed our on-site enablement team, because the guys were in there working with the labs projects. And in a half day, they moved over and had the thing up and running and operationalized. And like, wait. We spent a month with AWS and Docker, and we got that done and more in 4 hours on PCF.
It's going to take a platform. It's going to take a platform.
And that's the thing that people like, the comparisons. This is why I get so bored of talking about containers. I was like, guys, platform is not about containers or VMs or orchestration. It is about all of the details of running and operating software at scale that are hard regardless of the technology you're using until you get them automated.
I mean, we have a container team. It's about 6 people. And then we have a container scheduling team. It's about another 7 people, 8 people.
Mm-hmm.
But that's not like that's not the whole show, right? Like, that's not everything that we do.
Yeah, there's like 150 people on the CF team. Most of them are not playing with container format.
Well, that's not even including all the Java people working on the CF Java stuff on the Spring team, which is another 30 people to make it awesome. These guys were using Node, but that was a great quote, and I think they've already got at that particular shop. I think they stood up CF and they're showing it to a couple teams like you did mention. They've got over 30 serious applications already just showed up on it, frictionlessly. So.
I mean, this story is so consistent, and it doesn't really matter. It's like the 18F guys were using Chef on top of AWS, right? These guys were using Docker on top of AWS. The thing is, the DIY, whatever you're like, we picked 6 tools and glued them together thing, never delivers the cycle time that you get on a platform. And it's just like, I've done it that way. I did it that way. I don't ever want to do it that way again. So I just like, that's why the difference between folks that get it are the folks that have tried it, right? We almost never lose once they have a POC. Like, the POC experience is so compelling. They're like, oh, we get it now. We deploy and then operate and update and scale, and logs come out here, and environment variables get set up here, and like all of this makes sense, and we can reason about it, we can troubleshoot it, and runs in production. Like, that's not a container format. Although I am excited about OCP. I'm not dogging that. No one's gonna take that.
Speaking of OCP, we're going to engage on that really soon. We've got people playing with it. I know Dimitri from the Bosch team has already built a Bosch release that uses it. He hasn't open sourced that yet. He wants to get it right first. But the Garden team, that's the container team you guys were speaking about. They're going to be digging in on Run C and checking it out in a very deep way. And we join the effort at Pivotal, so we expect to contribute and be a part of that community. Hey, let's talk a little bit. I don't know if not everyone will be convinced by these arguments that, like, do-it-yourself pass, because I see it all the time, right? Just when people were in San Francisco for DockerCon, I met a couple of teams of people that had been standing up kind of their own thing, using other container orchestration systems. But it was a lot of like, do-it-yourself, and they were satisfied, with their initial experience. There's a couple of like really sharp guys that were able to kind of cobble together a little Consul here, a little Mesos over here, a little Docker over here, and they got their code to come up, and and run a couple of apps. But what I think is what makes that hard, and I'm curious what you guys actually see talking to customers, is that it takes a lot of specialized skills to not only even just get that far, but then it's like all the things you're talking about, Josh, like make the boring parts of it, that when it's not as exciting anymore, like I'm not on the latest kernel using the latest cutting edge clustering technology. Now it's like day 300 in production and I'm updating a CVE and like all of this kind of stuff. Like how does it get boring for the org in a non like, ooh, is it gonna work? Like it's like, no, it's gonna work. And you just go to this page in the manual and follow the process and it just works. That's like what we're trying to do. But I think a lot of people are skeptical that the do-it-yourself results in that, like, or that they're gonna hit a wall at some point. Like, so how do we help people see that haven't done it, or do they have to hit the wall?
Well,
do they have to reach a frustration point?
The most reasonable, rational conversations I've had on that topic are always with C-level executives because they get it. We have a buy versus build debate about every component in the stack, right? They're like, because what a developer is motivated to do, and especially when you hire smart engineering-minded developers and tell them to assemble infrastructure, and often this is like a new kind of architecture team around DevOps ideas or whatever, they're used to building things. And they're used to building things that look really good on their resume. And there's nothing actually wrong with that, right? Resume-driven development has driven a lot of cool tech for years. But the C-suite is usually familiar with this bias and knows how to say, okay, we get that this is not something that's only used in a corner of the organization. We get that this is actually going to be, at some point, an institutional standard. And we get that we need reasonably inexpensive, reasonably boring, and reliable people who can deal with these tools and this platform for a long time to come when it's not cool, right? And this is the thing we see right now with the DIY OpenStack movement, and which I feel that pain every day because I tried to get people not to do that for years, and now I look at the people who did it and it's like, yep, you built your OpenStack team of 30 really, really smart people, and they built you an OpenStack from raw open source. And then they all left because they all got better jobs doing something shiny with containers. And now you're stuck on a version that's 2 years old. You can't upgrade. You have no idea how to manage it. You have no in-house talent. And you can't hire it anymore because it's boring and nobody, like it went from cool to boring so fast that you had no maintenance in the middle.
Yeah, there's this amazing thing that happens as you sort of move from the shiny objects, and you were talking to some shiny object people, right? DockerCon was full of shiny object folks, and what people need to understand is that when you're doing that, you're rarely solving business problems, right? There's actually never a part of that conversation that explains this is why this is the best thing possible for the business, right? They'll say this is so cool and I can do this and I can do that, but when it actually comes down to like, why was this the best expenditure of resources for the business? It's crickets. And you look at enterprises and they recognize that part of the infrastructure should be boring. It's supposed to be boring. It's not that enterprises are boring, it's that they recognize that the business has nothing to do with that stuff being shiny and exciting. And it does create this tension that you're pointing out really well, Josh, which is that the engineers who are going to move the fastest, take the most risks, find these exciting new things, are also the ones who are going to get bored pretty easily. And they're sort of being preemptively bored by the idea of a structured platform because they look at it and they say, actually, there's nothing for me to do here, right? Like all of the stuff that I would think is cool is done. And from the C-level perspective in a business, that is exactly the right answer. Like that sounds awesome. There's no business value whatsoever to be had in that. So I don't want to do it. I would just like to write you a check.
The other thing that we see that's interesting is these communities of interest, right? And I mean, in each of these sectors now, we can name at least a couple of companies that are publicly on record. Like we talk about financial services, and we can say, okay, well, here's 3 huge banks that are members of the foundation. And we know that we have another 4 that are customers that we can't really mention yet. But what's interesting is how they do go as a group, because they say, look, we know that if JPMC is using this and Bloomberg's using this and Citi's using it, then we know that the tech is going to evolve in the way that serves the needs of financial services. Like those customers and the vendors involved with those customers are moving it in that direction. Why would we want to build that ourselves? We see the same thing now with industrial, like with GE leading the way. Every other major industrial company is like, hey, if GE is going to make this work for their needs, it's going to work for ours. That drafting effect, I think, is really powerful.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the things that I observed, hanging out with folks this last 2 weeks, is that there's a new wave of people adopting this rapidly that are not the cutting edge tinkerers anymore, right? These are people who realize this is rapidly closing in on a mainstream phenomena by the end of the year, and then it's going to turn into if you don't have a Cloud Foundry or 2 running in your enterprise for your new development or your high scale development, it's going to be like you're behind. And I'm seeing that rapidly happen, and it dawned on me that this is not the same group of people that 2 years ago were really interested in what we were doing, right? This is a different psychological profile, a different adoption profile in the classic Jeffrey Moore map. And we're hardcore into the demanding mainstream, the people that want to see 20 reference customers before they do anything. We've got an abundance of it now. And I think that's why it's becoming so hard to keep track of everything that's happening, because that mainstreamness is feeding itself. But I also think that's really an interesting moment for us to think about what features we add next and how we move them along that path. And one of the things I ran into was just the need to have single sign-on between version control systems, CI, artifact management, and the platform. One company, they have Cloud Foundry now, and they're like, it's cool, but we're struggling because we have 5 different CI systems, 5 different version control systems. And not in our Cloud Foundry install, but in our normal install, we have things in prod that we don't know how they got there. And so I was really worried about them. I almost felt like staying late that night and seeing what I could do. So I mean, this is where I do think just the shared identity and the auditability and the connectedness of everything we're doing with partners. We're going to be launching we got our Jenkins CI partnership done. We have Concourse, which is our own. We have Artifactory, and we're going to be working with GitLab to bring GitLab to the platform.
Hey James, I really want to put an open question out to Twitter on this topic, let's say Twitter to start with, and then the web at large, which is at every part of a full CD pipeline, right? And let's just say that structured platform is the heart of the continuous delivery experience, but there are parts that we haven't put in the product yet. So if you think about your CI tools, your source control, your build tools, your logging infrastructure, single sign-on solutions, etc., APM, metrics, at each layer, we have to make a decision: are we going to be opinionated, or are we going to be plug-in? And is there a middle ground where we have a preferred first among equals, batteries included but not required kind of model, which I'm frankly not a fan of. I like clearly either opinionated or agnostic. But if you look at CF, we have a number of places where we've said we're agnostic. We're agnostic to IaaS, we're agnostic to language, we're agnostic to framework. And then we've had places where we say we're strictly opinionated. There's one way to do this, which we believe is the right way. There is a right way to orchestrate virtual machines. It's called BOSH. And we believe there's a right way to orchestrate containers, which is runtime. We're not pluggable in the sense of the orchestration engine. That doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
So the debate, the question is, for these other tools, for CI, for source control, does our community want us to be more opinionated and say, you know what, here's the one way we think you should do CI, and this is the tool that we think is the right way to do it? Or are they happy with, so far, really a plug-in model in that space?
Or is the community opinion this is the one way to do haircuts, and everyone should do it this way and drink the same beverage?
Oh, wow.
Does anyone
Turned into a villain.
Does anyone remember
He's a villain now.
the old Sherlock Holmes movie? There's like the cult in London or whatever.
I love the little That's all that's left.
I might get rid of that. But
Soul patch. Come on now.
You could leave that and shave the eyebrows. Really give it a start.
I'm not sure I'm ready for that one, but
Things just got very weird.
Can you get the Sinbad earring now, like the gold, half-inch earring, a la pirate style?
Schaefer, what do I have to sell this quarter to get you to shave your eyebrows?
oh, you think we can do $100 million order?
$100. I'll shave everything.
Thanks, Scott.
$100 million, and Schaefer will wax his entire body.
Yeah, that's fair.
That's a good bet, Chase. You should take that.
I'll take that, sure. It's not a bet. It wasn't even a bet in the first place. It was a contract.
All right. Well, you take that contract then.
It's an exchange. It's an exchange of value.
Right. Right. You're getting all libertarian on us. So hey, on the
Hey, have you heard of Bitcoin?
it's going to bail out Greece. So back to the product that we sell. I think that if we look at where customers are most successful and the things that they get most excited about, it's where we are opinionated and we solve their problems. And there's absolutely the whole is greater than the sum of the parts going on, right? Is that as we add more opinionated components, more tight integration between those components, people see tremendous value. And that value is, sort of disproportionate to whatever one thing we added in. Which doesn't mean that they don't sometimes want to use something else. Often they have legacy stuff that they have to integrate. But the things that get people most excited are actually the things where we're most opinionated. And the other side of being opinionated is that it's not a vote. So I like opinions.
I think part of it is the tyranny of the choice, where if you come and say, here's the best way to do this, or the best practice, or whatever the word is today, then you can make that assertion, and it's probably better than whatever anyone else is doing, because best is hard to measure. But getting to the point where you're able to solve the problem and make people successful is the real measure. And right now, I think that there's way too much choice. And when I see what's happening, it's like there's still people trying to figure out the baseline thing, and we're preaching like this microservices gospel. And it's hard to get from hello world CF push to the new architecture that's going to build your future. Who wants to make a deal?
Thank you. There's just a lot of tension building up there waiting for that.
Deal or no deal?
I just need a row of models with suitcases, and we'll get this show on the road.
Well, you have feisty children with play toys. I mean, that's pretty close.
They would probably love to make a deal.
So on the opinionated front, I think that's going to be a really interesting one. I mean, just to close it off, though, that I think that having a version control system out of the box by default is definitely going to be something that's useful. Hopefully we get people to standardize on something. And even if we just give them single sign-on, I mean, the idea that you'd have things in production that you didn't know how they got there, I think that those folks were high trust in telling me that, but I don't think they're alone. Because it's not always easy to audit a system which is based on trouble tickets that deployed things, and you can't query all that data very easily to see how it got there. It's not always easy.
This is one of the reasons why I don't like the language around paths that I developed, because it's kind of, on one hand it's ambiguous, on the other hand it's kind of limiting. And really what we're talking about here is, where does the platform start and end? And if you believe, as we've said, that the value is in this fully integrated platform, then going from the one piece that everyone said was a thin layer called paths to actually having this fully developed continuous delivery pipeline is a huge value add.
Yeah.
And you're right. PaaS is a difficult term, and obviously we and many others have had debates about what PaaS even means. But if we look at the reasons that people buy Cloud Foundry and why they use Cloud Foundry, why they're excited about the stuff we give them, it's because what we're giving them is application lifecycle, right? That's the actual problem that they have. They're trying to ship and operate software, and making up their own way of shipping and operating software, for the most part, for enterprises, has no value whatsoever. There's very little that they're going to do. If they were to get something that was 5% better, but they had to give up the rest of the structured platform to get it, why would they do it, right?
And there's a great quote. I don't know if you saw it in the notes from one of the Boston-based companies. It's a mid-sized email marketing company up there that's not some giant enterprise. And the way their CTO expressed it to me rather eloquently was, look, for us at this point, we're either going to go all in on Amazon, and just native, or we're going to do Cloud Foundry at Amazon, and those are the only two options. And he said, really, the reason I'm going with Cloud Foundry is it eliminates a lot of choices that are non-value add for us to make. Because I feel like my team might spend the next 2 years debating the 100 different ways of using Amazon and building things on Amazon, when we could just get to work, building code with Cloud Foundry. He said, I'm almost buying you for your opinions. So I wish you'd been in the room, because you would have had like one of those grins that like keeps stretching and stretching and stretching.
And then I disappear, and there's nothing but a grin.
The grin just like
the Cheshire Paz.
A grin, Event Horizon, it takes over.
Well, one thing that's interesting to me to think about this, the term PaaS, is like most of these companies, they don't call it PaaS. They give it some acronym or name that like is custom to their own thing. And I think you saw this, James, or at least I know Mark and you, we went over to the UK recently and saw how some of our customers had kind of basically white labeled our platform and put their own branding on some of the pages. And so they really do make the platform their own. In some of these cases, they've customized things a little bit, where they wanted the platform to be even wider than it was, and they built in some of their opinions of how they do things in their organization. And if you go back to this company that has 5 SCM systems, yeah, when you start a new project, you should be, we should have a good opinion there and a good option for you to use, and we should be pushing you towards that option. But I sure want them to be able to onboard onto our platform, even if they're using Perforce or something like SVN or something that isn't like quite as modern as Git.
That goes back to the original choice of CF push versus Heroku or Git clone Heroku, master, right? Like that's as old as Cloud Foundry itself. Is that sense of you can bring your convention as well as use ours.
Yeah, and I do think you will miss out on some parts of the platform if you go that route. For example, like if we end up integrating GitLab such that you have this single sign-on experience, like so that the same users that can see your source control are the same users that can actually do the application lifecycle, which are the same users that can use the APM, and that's all tied together to your identity provider, and you just kind of express that one time, saying, this is my team of people, and my team, this is the team that can do all these things. I think that there's so much more value out of if you go all in like that than if you have to like go manage all those things as separate systems. But I do think that there is going to be a line where if we go too far on the opinions, that it will be too far for some people.
Well, I say we can't go too far enough.
I know you do.
Yeah, I think it just comes down to the Pareto distribution. And if you think about there's going to be some things that limit people, but if you can capture a solution for 80% of the market with making an opinion that's constrained to 20% of the possible solutions, then I think that's a win.
That's what we get paid to do. That's literally our jobs, is to help form the right opinions out of the box and the right plug points to make people successful. So. And
what I love is that we don't have to do it in a vacuum. Like we have all you people traveling to all over the world, getting lots of feedback for us in the R&D labs, so we're not just like making one up, which is great, because you won't get it right if you do it that way.
No, I think we've definitely tilted towards open source input, customer input. Man on the street input, not as much. That would be funny. Let's do PaaS opinions on the street.
Next CFAD has to be done with Hangout from an iPhone, and we've got to hit whatever street we're nearby whatever country we're in, and just do a man on the street. We got to have like maybe 2 questions for man on the street for CFAD. Got to do it. Got to do it.
Safety containers. Time is now or too soon?
I think this has a lot of potential.
Yeah, I think it's great. Well, Andrew's head is shaved. Josh now has a beard. I was getting some DMs, why does Josh have a beard? It's secrets time, so I'm just going to give a little bit of a secret. Josh might have a new friend.
Not that new anymore.
Well, a friend who really likes that he has a beard.
It's a playoff beard.
Yeah, he might be in the playoff. Everyone was DMing me. They're like, "Hey, what's wrong with McKenty? His beard's like out of control."
And he seems so chill. It's weird.
Oh, best secret ever. Yeah, I got
Hey,
nothing.
we just finished the quarter, man. How'd
It's
that
true.
go?
I cannot talk about that until EMC earnings are out. I have no idea how it went. So, well, I'm ready to call it a wrap, but I think we should leave with Schaefer, maybe in some music. What do you think with the head posing here?
Well, I got him locked, so he's huge. Where's the Snoop?
Yeah, no, I can't play that song. Still DRE.
Yeah, it's a children's program.
Well, shout out to Julie and the whole Pivotal Federal team for resulting in Andrew's new hairdo. It's one for the books.
Julie pretty much crushed that one on her own, which is astonishing, because that was a big number.
But let's be clear, she said, I have it on record. She said she wouldn't have done it without this motivation.
Hey, that's awesome. And yet, she went out there and crushed it. So
My methods work.
Andrew was trying to say, he's like, I actually won the bet. And I agree with him. That's why
I'm actually
we're all winners here. Schaefer's
I'm pretty
ball.
sure.
We got big contracts.
You're both wrong in that I doubt Schaefer motivated it, and I know at least 6 people that worked on that deal.
Hey, you want to see my?
Let's give the shout out to the whole team. Julie definitely.
Do it. Shout out to the whole team. Name names, John.
There were a lot. Well, hey, Keith Salisbury, Julie's FEs that were involved on that for sure. Derek, I believe, had his hand in there. A lot of support from headquarters.
As I said at the beginning, it takes a village.
Absolutely. Schaefer's baldness, I'm sure, was that the straw that broke the camel's unnatural back.
It's the 1001 paper cuts that get you.
That's right. Good stuff.
All right, we're descending into pun madness. Let's call it.
I'm calling it.
Everybody.
Great to see everybody.
Are you going to play us out, James?
Hold on, I'll play us the top.